The switch is on Battle Line Podcast. This is a special bonus annex episode. If you haven't already checked out the latest full episode, you really should. We had a great interview with Lee
Yeah,
Greenwood,
yeah,
but this was just too big of a topic not to get into because it's someone we both know. Pete Hegseth, chosen as the next Secretary of Defense. Now, here's the thing. If you've been checking out the articles and the headlines and everything, the big thing being covered, just if you Google Pete Hegseth right now, is the allegations of sexual assault against him. Now, truthfully, I don't know anything about that. We both
yeah.
know Pete Hegseth not well or anything. That is not something I think I would think he was ever involved in. I mean, the truth is. Look, if there's something concrete out there, of course he should be disqualified. If that's something he did, he should be behind bars, quite honestly.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
also know
Yeah.
that if you're rich and you're powerful, which Pete Hegseth is, people become targets. I saw it happen to Charles Payne, who was completely
Yeah.
innocent of what he was accused of. At the same time, just to be fair, if I was in that position, God forbid anybody ever accused me of sexual assault, I would never pay off the victim, and
Yeah.
that doesn't look very good. But anyway, it's looking like he likely will be qualified and or confirmed, I should say. And yeah, I mean, we both had a similar immediate reaction when we heard the news. Like I said, we both have a history with Pete Hegseth. I knew Pete Hegseth before he was ever even on Fox or any of that. But yeah, I guess you can give your first reaction to hearing that he
Well,
was
our
tapped by Trump
reaction
as
when you
Secretary for
saw,
Department of Defense.
well, you saw mine when you texted me because I hadn't heard it because I've been living under a rock for the last 45 days trying to work on these flood claims for these hurricanes that came in. But yeah, I'll be on I'll tell you guys, my first reaction to Ian was what WTF? So what? Not that again, not that I know him well enough, and I know I've done interviews with him. In fact, there's an infamous interview out there. It's probably the last one I ever did with him, where I was
It is
said I
the
was going
last
to,
one you ever did with him. It
yeah, last
is.
one, guys, last one on Fox anyway. That I said I was going to choke out the former president of the United States. So, but
Which, by the way, you did not mean literally.
no, of
We
course,
don't
the
need
secret.
this to
I got
happen all
here.
over again.
I got all. Believe the Secret Service came to my house. We did all the stuff we needed to do, and that hey, that's their job. I have nothing wrong with that at all. They did what they were supposed to do. But it's to me, and I was a major in the guard. I
Yeah,
couldn't find exactly a major.
yeah.
A major in the military, especially with the majority of the time, I believe in the guard. I'm not sure qualifies you for SecDef. Now, you and I had this discussion. I agree with what you said, and I do. It's like, well, we've had all these guys that are qualified in there, and it hasn't done us. Hasn't made any better. In fact, it's made it worse. To be honest with you, the military have gotten worse. The retention numbers have gotten worse. The recruiting has gotten worse, and the battle readiness has gotten worse. So I get, and this was Ian's argument. And again, and it wasn't for me. He's smarter than me, man. He said, well, maybe they just doing it because there needs to be a change because the normalcy isn't working. And that makes sense. But there's other people, in my opinion, that I know that I do know personally that would be better suited for that. One is Marty Strong. I like, man, if you're going to go that route, then you pick Marty Strong to be
By the way,
SecDef.
you're totally stealing my thunder because that's the name
Oh, is
I
that what you
said
were
to
going to say?
you.
Oh, well,
I
shoot, I'm
said I
sorry.
here's what I
But,
said. I said if you look at qualifications, I remember I said to you on the phone, I was like, there's
oh,
definitely a bunch
you
of
did,
people
you
I could
did.
think of who would be
Yeah.
more qualified. And I said like Marty Strong, just because he's
Yeah,
been
you did.
recent,
So maybe,
but
maybe that's where that came from, man.
there's
But you're
probably a
right.
bunch though. There's probably a bunch. I mean, like I really do think if we went through our guest list, we could name at least 15 people who we would say would be better suited.
I agree. And this position to me is a public figure position and has become that over the years more than whether they were before or whether they became one after, like even Shizeki, who to me completely started. That's where the downfall of the wokeness all started with the berets and everybody's on the same on the same level and but now we've come full circle where it's just completely obvious. Are we doing it because it's the best person, or are we doing it because it looks good in the public eye? And maybe I
And
would
here's
just
the
say,
truth. You could blame Trump for a lot of that. And here's the thing. This is why I've always said on the podcast, Did I personally vote for Trump? Yes. Was I going to go endorse him and say he's the greatest? No, because I'm going to treat him the same way I treated Biden when we talk about things that deal with the military on this podcast. And Trump is a guy who likes to have, I mean, everybody he's appointing is like a Fox News host or something. That's what he likes. He likes public figure. He likes, let's be honest, a lot of like hot blondes on Fox. He likes a guy who's like a handsome guy like Pete Hegseth, who's on the TV all the time, speaking his language and, making the point for Trump. And he does kind of go for that over the intellectual, most qualified person for the position.
Yeah, I agree. And you and I talked about that. You asked me, hey, what would you pick? I don't have
Yeah.
an answer for you because
Marty Strong?
but because I said I do my due diligence. You got to go through everything. You got to really do your. This is an important position. You don't just I like this guy. He's on Fox News. He supports me. He was a major in the Guard. Let's pick him. It's man. Let's go through it. And to get down to it, if what I tell you, I told you, Stanley McChrystal, I'd go back to him just because of experience and knowing that he does have that pedigree and he's been in all those positions and he knows what he's doing and he spoke out against the wrongdoings of a president and he was fired for it. That shows integrity. I'd get him back on, but this isn't a position that needs to be just done willy-nilly, which is what I kind of felt when you told me. That's what I felt like, and did he really do all the due diligence he could have or his team could have to pick the best person in the position? But maybe we'll be wrong again.
Sure,
Maybe
I agree. Yeah.
maybe we're completely wrong, and we do need to go way outside the normalcy of what we've been doing because what we have been doing hasn't been working either. So there's a valid argument for that, and I'll read Crow in a heartbeat if Pete Hegseth turns it around and it all works out well, and the military gets stronger, and we get back to where we were. I think even the Reagan era, like or not with the Reagan era, the military was very strong at that point in time. They were in the Reagan era, and even certain some of the Bush eras, even part of the Clinton era, even though he started to take money away from us. But if it gets back to those battle readiness levels, then I'll say, man, I was wrong. Okay, cool. I want to be wrong here, but I don't think either you or I are going to be as time tells. But if we are, or if I am, okay, yeah, I'm wrong. Because that means the military is strong and that means it's powerful and we're back up to where the battle readiness needs to be, if God forbid, wherever in Iraq and Afghanistan type wars at the same time again, plus all the little stuff that goes on in Yemen and Libya and Pakistan and everywhere else in North Africa and parts of Africa, Somalia, what's that? West Africa, East Africa.
I'm
Sorry,
terrible at
Somalia.
geography. Don't ask me.
Yeah, I always it's not West Africa. That's the friendly part, even though they've got blood diamonds over there. East Africa, that's Somalia, off the Gulf of Aden there. So. Yeah, that's my 2 cents, man. What take it or leave it.
Yeah, I don't think you were saying if you're wrong, if you're right. For me, I don't think there's anything for me to be wrong or right about yet because I haven't formed a conclusion of how this is going to be. But it's just on paper, he's very unqualified. That's just the truth.
Yeah.
However, let's look at things in context. Trump is the unqualified candidate, the unqualified president. That's part of his appeal. When Trump ran, everybody said, "You've never worked in government. You've never had a position of power. You didn't work your way up from congressman, senator." And the people said, "We don't want that anymore. We want someone who's an outsider." So I think Trump, by that same logic, is saying, "I'm going to pick a lot of outsiders," because he has openly said that he made a lot of bad decisions if you listen to the Rogan interview with who he appointed, with the people like John Bolton. And I think he has,
With his prior president, yeah,
yeah,
prior president,
exactly. So I
yeah.
think he is taking a hard pivot and saying, I'm going full on outsider.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That is the rationale that makes this pick legitimate in my mind. That's the route he wants to go, and can't argue that because the routes we've been going, I've said it here again, the normal routes ain't really been working either. So shake it up and see what happens, and just hope he has a contingency plan if it goes south quickly that they can pivot to it, which as a good leader, business or politician or military, you always do, especially military. You pick that initial, but you always have a contingency and a secondary and a tertiary or third plan, even down the line more than that. Mark Strong can tell you that because if something doesn't work, then you can immediately pivot to something else. So there's no lapse and you don't lose the initiative in whatever you're trying to do, because losing the initiative means you're going to start all the way over. And that's not you don't want to do that, especially when you're trying to rebuild the military and you're trying to in a SecDef position or any position, government or business. So yeah, but you and I are on the same page. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think more or less. I hope I'm wrong in my opinion, but you're right. Do I have a? This is no. I don't have a.
But I don't
I
even think
don't.
that's an opinion because you're just stating fact. If you
You're
look
right.
at the qualifications of a Stanley McChrystal and you look at the qualifications of a Pete Hegseth,
I know.
objectively, Pete
I know.
Hegseth is less qualified.
Yeah.
Now, actually, I have something I'll get into that I could criticize Pete Hegseth on, but I'll defend Pete Hegseth on this. When he was picked, the liberal media completely lied about his background, and they knew they were lying because you just do a quick Google search, you go to his Wikipedia, you see what he's done. And whether it was The View, people on CNN, people on MSNBC, they said Pete Hegseth is a weekend Fox host. All they picked him, all he's ever done is he's a host on the
Yeah.
weekends on Fox. And even one of the hosts on The View, I don't remember which, said, what does he know about the military? Now, he may not be qualified, but he's a 20-year
Yeah.
military combat veteran.
And
So
yeah,
so to
he has
call
certain
him
Iraq.
a Fox weekend host would be as ridiculous as calling you a podcast host and not saying you've
I
done anything else. It's insane.
Well, that's the mentality of the shows and that's the mentality of the View right there. That doesn't surprise me at all. They don't do any of their due diligence. That's the kind of show that needs to be yanked off the air. It needs to be gone. But yeah, all you gotta do is, like you said, simple Wikipedia, Google, Pete Exit, boom, pops up, and everybody know. That's to me, I guess, and I'm not a Fox zealot, but to me, that's pretty much common knowledge. Whether Pete Hegseth served in the military. There's always stuff out there, and even when the CPAC he was with, that was his big
The super PAC, Concerned
super
Veterans
PAC.
for America.
Thank you, concerned veteran. Okay, so
Yeah.
there you go. You got to be. I know I live under a rock, but you really have to be dumber than a bag of hammers to say something like that. And
Yeah, they just picked a random weekend host on
I
Fox. I mean,
know,
it's a little
like
bit
really,
insane. Like, yes, you could criticize his qualifications, but to act like he has no military service
no,
is
that's wrong.
ridiculous.
That's wrong. You don't become a major, whether in the Guard Reserves or active duty, without having a lot of military experience, regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just stupid. I didn't know they said that to you. You told me that, like, but it doesn't shock me from the sources that it came from, because that's how they are. They never. It got to the point where we talked about it with Tadpole. We had Stradley on, where we're talking about how the media have people have moved away from that, which has helped this election, which helped Trump win, to the podcast and to the other forums, because they do their due diligence. They just don't throw something out there like on the mainstream just like that without doing some background checks. And maybe that's why, well, that's not maybe, that's why people have morphed away from that mainstream media and into podcasts like Rogan, podcasts like ours, like Sean Ryan's.
Yeah, and truthfully, I'm not the one who said this, but I mean, at this point, it is a misnomer to even call it the mainstream media. It's the corporate press, because
Corporate
what
press,
could be
you're right.
more mainstream than Trump going on Rogan and getting something like 500 million views, like something insane. I'd have to look at the exact amount, but like that's mainstream. If you have tens
Yeah.
of millions of people watching Sean Ryan, Rogan, that's really the mainstream in terms of what's popular.
Yeah, yeah. I know. We need to change that verbiage. Maybe we'll start that here. We got
Yeah,
to
just
make
corporate press. I've heard
corporate
Rogan
press
say it. I
or
agree with Rogan on that. It's true. So the thing I will criticize Pete Hegseth on in terms of policy and all that is we spoke about Eddie Gallagher and Eddie Gallagher's pardon. And Pete Hegseth was the guy who was very instrumental in being in Trump's ear of like, you need to pardon these guys. And the thing that bothers me is, look, we had Nick Slatton on the show, who was one of the guys who was pardoned. And, you could have disagreements or agreements of whether he should have been pardoned. But the thing I strongly disagreed with Nick on, and I said it on the show, was Nick is this believer that everyone should be pardoned for all war crimes.
no,
And I
no.
think that sets a terrible precedent. And I think Pete Hegseth, based on what I've heard from him, he seems to share some of those views, and that's extremely concerning. Obviously, we've spoke about this at large, and as a guy with no military experience, I get it that the rules of engagement are very much insane, and sometimes put the guys who are on the ground in the worst position of defending themselves. But at the same time, if someone is, and there are these people that exist, not everybody who serves honorably. There are people who go into a combat zone and purposely shoot and kill innocent civilians where there's no threat posed. Those people belong in jail. That should not be a controversial opinion.
No.
And Eddie Gallagher has admitted to certain things that some things, I understandable. Other things he's been accused of are a little bit crazier. And yeah, that concerns that, I think that there's the scale of we're going too woke, right? And then you have the other end of just free for
Extremism.
all, military could do whatever it wants, and we may as well resemble ISIS at that point. And
Yeah,
that's problematic. Once again, I never heard Pete Hegseth say exactly what I'm saying, but I think like his firm, we
his
need to get Eddie
actions.
Gallagher freed,
Yeah.
his passion for that troubles me a little bit. So,
His actions validated that statement that you made, and being on someone who's been there, has pulled the trigger and has killed terrorists before, has killed, and then also has held the trigger back when I probably didn't have to. There is that line that you don't get carte blanche to go take people's lives. You don't. You still make that decision. And if you do, that's murder. I don't care if you're in combat or not. If it's somebody that is unarmed and somebody that's not a threat to you anymore, you just don't go kill them. It's just you don't. That's it. And that's in the military as well. That's a law. But it's murder. There's murder in the military. It's not. It doesn't matter if you're in combat or not. There's certain situations that you don't do that. And from what I understand, and from he did. And now Nick and those that's a gray area there because we never really got. That's why I think
no,
it's
I
hard
agree.
to
But
justify that
my
aspect.
issue, like
You're
I
right.
said with Nick, was when he said that he was lobbying Congress for
Yeah,
free
can't do
everyone.
that.
I don't
That's
agree with that.
that's a dangerous precedent because we will have a lot of murders. We will have a lot of bad shoots, is what we call them. And the reason is because, and I said that on that show, and I still firmly believe this: war brings out the best in people, but it also brings out the very worst. It's on both sides, and if you have that penchant, and there are guys that do, I've worked with them. You have that penchant that to pull the trigger because you can, because you're the jolly green giant with the gun, and you're there to set the precedent that nobody's going to mess with you, and you're willing to take somebody's life just because you can. It's going to happen if you're given that green light to do so. That's why we have rules of engagement. But that being said, too, when in Libya, right, when I was in Benghazi specifically, the rules of engagement were too tight, where
Of
it was
course.
you don't shoot at all, so they start shooting at you first, and they're right up on top of you. So if Pete, you're listening out there, there is a middle ground there, and you got to find it. Because if you don't, you'll lose control of the military. You'll lose control of the guys on the ground, and you're right. Might as well just be ISIS fighting ISIS because that's what it will turn into. And I agree with you there. So no,
Yeah.
I'm full on agreement with you, brother. It's something, but again, it's something we have to. Time will tell. We have to wait and see, and
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll
And the
see.
other dangerous precedent, just to be honest, right, is that Pete is openly very conservative, right? Like look at his statements, look at his tattoos, look at and I think that Trump is going right, truthfully, he's going full anti-woke. This is who I'm appointing. Now, the opposite end of that is then don't be surprised when the Democrats get in power at some point, and then they choose someone as far left as possible instead of being objective. And that is a problem too. I probably would prefer someone as sec def where I don't really know where their politics lie. Once again, we'll bring him up. A guy like Marty Strong, he didn't really get political on the show. I don't know where he stands on everything. And that is more of a good thing, rather
Yeah,
than
yeah.
a guy who's going to be hated by Democrats at large because the Secretary of Defense is supposed to speak for the military. And as we often say, the
It,
military is not a monolith.
it's a valid argument to say that Millie went pretty far
Oh, yeah.
left. And he could have been. I mean, he had the pedigree to be an excellent officer. What being with 10th Mountain Division when Somalia happened, as a major, and then seeing all that Ranger Tab, Special Forces, I believe he was long tab, but he went crazy left, which you saw in Afghanistan withdrawal, which why that was a failure, and it was a stupid mindset, stupid person,
Also,
stupid.
the ads we were running,
The
all
ads
the,
were
you know, and
terrible,
that's
you
why
know.
recruitment went down. Like
Yeah.
people on the left will say, "Oh, well, define woke." I mean, go look at some of the ads. It's not the ads that I grew up on where it was Godsmack playing in the background and kind of some alpha males. That's not what it was
Hey,
being promoted.
be all you can be. Still good. That still works. The Marine ones are coming back. I can see them. They're getting tough. And the Air Force ones with the aim high. That's good. Bring that back. That's excellent. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, but in the military and in today's world, today's society, we'll never have somebody that's apolitical in a position. It's just it's damn near impossible with everything that
But at
goes.
least appears
But at least
apolitical.
no,
Pete
no,
does not
that's
even
what
try to be
I'm going.
apolitical.
Yeah.
Pete got his start working for a Republican super PAC or conservative super PAC. So I mean that kind of says it all. Actually, I'm trying to. I had one other question I wanted to ask you. Now I'm losing my train of thought. I may have to cut this out because I forgot what it is. All right. If you ever keep going, if you had
No,
something, because it'll come to me.
I just
I'll have to
want
cut
that
that.
the military does what we're going down to is the military in itself. The military needs to get somebody that isn't into politics. The politics shouldn't be involved in the military at all. Period. Zero out. And when I was serving, I didn't care. I'll be quiet, guys. I didn't care. When I was in, I didn't care. My daily grind, what I needed to do, what my commander needed to do. My daily grind was to push myself as hard as I could be to be the best I could be all you can be, and then be a ranger. Rangers lead the way, 100% and some. That was my focus. It wasn't anything within the political spectrum, and I don't think I know it needs to get back to that where I don't care, man. Just give me what I need. Give us what we need to complete our mission. Support us, always back us. Get out of politics. Stop playing politics if you're in the military, and be the military. Be separate from it. You're always going to have your views once you get outside of it, but when you come to work, you leave those at home, man. And again, I didn't even when I was with the CIA, I didn't care until really didn't care until Benghazi happened. I mean, I cared a little bit in Kandahar because Kandahar one of my security forces guys, my local guy, when Obama got elected, he was worried we were going to leave the country. He came and asked me. I was in Canada. He goes, "You guys are leaving, aren't you?" I go, "Eventually, it's probably going to happen now." And you know, he didn't care for Obama, and that's when I started to kind of pay attention. This was in 2008, 2009, but I still didn't really care. What I'm getting at, guys, is that the politics in the military needs to just be taken out. Battle readiness is the focus, and recruitment is the focus, and taking care of your troops is the focus. Not, and there's still a lot going on because I do talk to young veterans. I mean, young service members, and there's still a lot going on where the gender names are held in high regard. You need to call somebody what they believe they're called and
Yeah.
all that. And that's horseshit. No, boy, that needs to stay out. Standards are standards regardless. We don't need to get into the wokeness, and that needs to be completely pulled out of it. But I'm agreeing too. We can't go all the way crazy on the other extreme. It needs to find some middle ground, and that's why you and I both agree with Marty Strong. Sick death,
I do remember
yeah,
the last thing I want to ask you actually as we wrap this up. You mentioned Sean Ryan earlier on in the show,
yeah.
and that was another topic of controversy that they've been playing in the media. Pete Hegseth was on the Sean Ryan show, and he pretty much explicitly stated he does not believe women should be in any combat roles for the U.S. military, period. And look, there's people being appointed to the administration, including Tulsi Gabbard, who are women who did
Yeah.
serve in combat roles. So it kind of contradicts what they believe. What do you think of that statement from a
I
future
know.
SecDef?
I get it. Standards are standards are standards. It should be across the board. Gender shouldn't make a difference what gender you are, what race you are, what religion, it doesn't matter. If you can meet a standard, then you're in. And that's we've had excellent combat pilots. Holy crap, no. There's been freaking outstanding, some that have won prestigious, or I should say won the medals, but earned those medals in combat. And you know, even with Tom Block, I believe it was his mission. They had a female that was with them that died during one of their ops when they got trapped in those minefields. So no, I don't agree with that at all. I know it's the old way of thinking, and I get that. You know, women shouldn't be there because it's. I don't think it's more. I don't think it's because of physicality though. I think it's because what the old standard was back in the World War I, World War II is that you see women die on the battlefield. the morale drops significantly more than when you see a man die on the battlefield.
Yeah,
And that's really where it started. But now, I always say standards are standards. Whatever that standard is, that's the same for everybody across the board. If you meet it, all right, let's go. If you don't, then you don't get in. And that's where I have the issues is when they're dropping standards for particular positions because you're a woman or
yeah,
because you're well, usually that's what it is more women or age or whatever the standards are lower. No, if I'm okay with women in different ages, I don't care what age you are, going in and being a ranger, being a SEAL, or being a pilot, or whatever. But you have to meet those physical standards, and they need to be never be waived. And then we're okay. Then there's no issue. It's black and white right there. You make it or you don't. And like I said, I couldn't make it now, and I wouldn't be able to be a
sure.
ranger. There's no way, new hip, new knees. But I'm okay. That's the standard. I shouldn't be. I can't do those things anymore. So no, don't give me a new standard just because I'm a little injured or old. That's the standard. That's what it should stay. So no, I don't agree with that at all. I understand the mindset of back in the day because I get that, and it does seeing women or children die on the battlefield. To be quite honest, it does personally. It does hurt you more. You do feel maybe that's just the alpha maleness in alpha males. I don't know, but I don't agree with it in today's world that we have because I've seen women do amazing things. Actually, we've had amazing pilots and amazing crew chiefs on our show that did
Yeah.
outstanding things in not just combat, but even why am I forgetting her name?
Ashley Albright.
Actually, yeah, exactly. In arduous situations that caused that they had to require a lot of physical strength and they got the job done. So no, I don't agree with that. But I do agree with standards maintaining the same for everyone across the board for particular positions. And if you don't make those standards, you don't make it. And that's how it should be. That is the fair way to do it. But it'll never be that way. I hope it did, but if I was tech deaf, I'd make it that way. I would.
Yeah.
But that'll never happen. I don't even come close to me meeting any requirements to be in any of those positions. I would never want to be. But no, I don't agree with that at all, bro. Women can be if they can. Anybody can be in a position if they can make the standards that are set for that position.
Yeah. Any other final thoughts on Hegseth being
No,
tapped to
no,
SecDef?
no. I think we said enough, and I said I hope I'm proven incorrect, wrong, whatever you want to say. I hope he does a great job because the military needs to get back to where it needs to be, or at least starts it off, and then maybe somebody comes out with more experience comes in and finishes off. But I do would like to see it in the right direction because the military is near and dear to me. That was my life for many years. And I'd like to see the same within the CIA, and I'd like to see the same within the State Department as well. But we'll see, man. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah. I think, like I said, this is an unconventional pick, and some of those are good. I think RFK, right? Very unconventional pick. And the whole thing is he's not a scientist, he's not a doctor, but right, as someone who's also not, I do think it's a problem that I turn on the TV and I see ads for every single medical condition and, and
Get away
with
from them,
horrible
man.
side effects. So I think an outsider can do good. So I'm not sold one way or the other. When I say he's unqualified, I'm just being objective. That doesn't mean he'll do a poor job. He may do a great job. So, and I agree. I hope he does a great job. But with that, whatever you think, leave your comments below. If this is your first time ever seeing anything from Battle Line Podcast, please subscribe. We're growing our following here, and we have new episodes up every Tuesday, and we appreciate all of your support.